Welcome back to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined by Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke. The VAR chat didn't make the guys fall out. They made up post-recording on the Champions League, and us listeners, host himself, we thank you guys. Mark, it's been a great few weeks since we're talking about it. It's the last week before international break. We kind of briefly talk about this before every international break. Are you looking forward to the, not week off, but you're looking forward to the quiet time ahead of the busy Christmas period, or do you just want to keep going with the football?
No, very much looking forward to it. It's all in basically, isn't it? When especially in Champions League weeks, it can be quite draining really to be going at it. There's never a second rest really, and I use the international breaks to have a bit of family time, a bit of a chill out as well. But I think this time around, I always like the November international break because it gives you a chance to take stock of what's been normally around at least 12 games across all the leagues. You get a much better feel for things, and it's a good chance to kind of revisit some outright positions too and see if there's anything that needs doing there too. So I'm looking forward to it. As the next one won't be till March, so it's a big old slog since we come back. So yeah, very much we'll get involved and have a bit of a time off.
Adrian, same to you.
Yeah. Although it feels like we've had a lot of international breaks lately, and I got away on the last one, but not this time around. So it'll be all right. I'm. It just feels like 5 minutes, so I'm keen to carry on. But as Mark points out, like from here on in, it is chocker, isn't it? In terms of fixtures, the Christmas is always crazy. So I'll take a little breather when we can.
Christmas Eve, Wolves versus Chelsea. I haven't told the guys yet. We're doing a one-off match preview for that. We're going to be recording morning. Might do a live watch along or something. I joke, of course. No, I'm looking forward to the Christmas break as always. Feel the football season's been good this year compared to last year, where it was just relentless with the World Cup and stuff. So, but yeah, with Adrian on that, the international breaks, I think they can either be more spaced out or maybe just play them all towards the summer. But thanks for joining us. We will be covering 4 games as always. We'll be covering Wolves versus Spurs, Liverpool versus Brentford, Aston Villa versus Fulham, and the main game in the Super Sunday slot, Chelsea versus Manchester City. If you are watching on the YouTube stream, either watching back or watching on live, welcome along. It takes 2 seconds to hit that like button. Be much appreciated. We'd love to be hitting that 3 figures for the likes, get their content out to a wider audience. And that's what we're all looking to do here. So we much appreciate it. And if you're listening on the podcast, if you hit that 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform, that would be much appreciated as well. We'll get into it this Thursday morning and start with the early kickoff, and this is going to be a fascinating game considering what happened Monday night. It's Wolves versus Tottenham. Wolves are 3.4 here on the match line and on the match odds. Tottenham 2.2. The draw is available at 3.9. Both teams to score 1.59. The Asian handicap line sees Wolves get a quarter goal head start at 2.06, and the goal line here is 2.5. That's a good bit shaded to the over at 167. Mark, set this game up for us just in terms of a price point, because obviously we had that crazy game Monday night. This crazy Monday night game, as I can remember anyway, for sure. Where have the prices sort of looked in? Because maybe not that second half performance necessarily in isolation for Tottenham, but obviously the injuries and suspensions means it could be a massive game in terms of a turning point for their season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I trust we all enjoyed Monday night. My kind of game that was.
Was it?
Chaos, cards, penalties, disallowed goals. I like a bit of VAR drama as well. So I think all in that first 45 minutes
wasn't it? It was
terrific. It was one of the best games I've seen for a long time in terms of just stuff happening all over the place. And I think Spurs started that match terrifically well in that opening 20-minute spell. They were electrifying really, and then they start to lose their heads a little bit and sort of things descend into chaos, and everything that could go wrong probably did go wrong for Postecoglou really. And I think the final score does look harsh. I know he was kind of widespread kind of criticised for his, in quotes, suicidal tactics, but Spurs could have easily got something out of that game. I think the final score was a bit harsh, and it was something I was going to bring up on the Chelsea analysis actually, but I think it's worth an airing here that in the 19 minutes between Nicholas Jackson's first and second goals, Spurs had 3 shots, 2 shots on target. That's not including Eric Dyer's disallowed effort. Chelsea had 0 attempts in that time. Spurs had 5 final third entries during that spell compared to 2 for Chelsea. Now, obviously, if Son, his effort towards the end goes in rather than saved, it could be a completely different end to that match too. And, we could be sort of talking about Tottenham and sort of praising Postecoglou's bravery and, what he did and the tactical approach completely bamboozled Chelsea. So I think fair play. I'm here for the entertainment. I thought it was a terrifically fun game to watch, even in that second half when they were playing that high line. So credit to Spurs. Now, anyway, I was following the market for this match during that game. Because anyone with kind of anyone who's watching it and seeing those players go off or get suspended in the game was clearly looking ahead to see what was happening at the weekend for Spurs in this trip away to Wolves. And before Monday night's match, Wolves were a +1 Asian handicap. That's where the line was basically. So it shifted pretty quickly during that game as we saw Romero sent off, Van der Ven pull up, Maddison go off. Now it's obviously down into a quarter ball line, but I still think there's opportunity to get Wolves on side with a half goal start. Obviously, Udogi's suspended as well. Perisic is injured. Potentially Ben Davies as well. Maddison sounds more like he's 50-50, but I guess from a Spurs perspective, Bentancur being back in the squad is a big plus. But either way, basically, three of your first choice back four are missing, and that's not ideal. So Wolves will be looking to take advantage. They've been very chalk and cheese between Molineux and away from home this season. At home, sort of a combination of kind of grit and energy has put teams under real pressure. You've got wins against Man City, creditable draws against Newcastle and Villa. Even the defeat against Brighton early on in the campaign wasn't anywhere near as one-sided as the score suggested. So the issue for Wolves really is no Pedro Neto, and as Adrian's outlined recently on the show, he's been instrumental. But they do have options elsewhere. Hwang's got 6 goals. He's been contributing assists. Cunha, Kolasinac on their day can both contribute. So I like the sort of balance of brawn and kind of ball playing ability that Wolves have now in the middle with Lemina and Doyle as well. So I do think they can give punters a bit of a chance here with a half goal start. The price is 182. So that's where I've landed on. The alternative I had here was over 2.5 goals in BTTS, but that's only around 1.85. So there's not a huge amount of difference between the two. And 9 of Wolves' last 10 have seen BTTS. They've only failed to score once this season. That was Old Trafford on the opening weekend when they played brilliantly well. They have only managed 1 clean sheet, which is always the concern when you want to get them on side against a good team. And Spurs' scoring record is second to none, really, so far this season. However, they have conceded multiple goals and 3 of 6 away. So, I think this will be good fun. I think Wolves have an opportunity here to get something out of this match. So I'm going to back them with a half goal start.
Okay, 182, as Mark alluded to there. So, Adrian, Mark sort of led into it, and it gives us a good opportunity to talk to somebody who has been in a dressing room in a professional football setting. And we've seen the debate about, obviously, it was a terrible thing for Ange to do in terms of having the high line, that sort of thing. But in terms of A, sending a message to his players in terms of the way they want to play, and B, the couple of chances that Mark said that have sort of been lost given the game finished 4-1. Where are you in terms of how he approached the second half? Is it a net positive or a negative for Spurs, even aside the injuries and suspensions? You know what I mean? Just talking purely tactics.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it was positive in that they gave it a go, and the mentality of the team was, we can still win this. And I like the messaging from the manager there. It was really, really positive, and they couldn't they? I mean, there's 2 gilt-edged chances, 3 really, that they could have scored. It was incredible. So I would credit rather than criticize. But that said, it was borderline ridiculous. If Chelsea had been, hadn't been so flustered, they made a right meal out of that. I think anyone that was on their game could have racked up 6 or 7 in that second half with that tactical approach. The high line was right on the line, wasn't it? Couldn't have got any higher, and it was easy. It should have been incredibly easy to get in behind. They did get in behind loads and loads of times. They just fluffed their lines 9 times out of 10, didn't they? So I would praise, but also I do think that it was very odd. And I think there's a reason why teams with 10 and 9 men don't play that way, especially against a side like Chelsea, who've got so much pace in forward areas. So I admired the fact that they did something different, but I mean, if they do that the next time they go down to 10 men, then I think there'll be a similar outcome.
Yeah, it's created a lot of debate, and a lot of people are ridiculing the high line. But yeah, I do think if you're a player in that dressing room, does it make you more want to play for Ange Postecoglou?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, because it's like it's the sort of we can do mentality, isn't it? There wasn't any concession. It wasn't right. Let's park the bus and hope for the best and just be super defensive. It was a proactive approach. And I do think players like playing for managers that think that way. I do. I'm not sure Eric Dyer would have enjoyed it as much as some of the other people coming in from the cold and then being asked to chase Nicholas Jackson and Raheem Sterling and co every other minute or so. But yeah, I like the positivity. In terms of this match, very aligned really in the thinking with Mark. Wolves have had a really tough schedule. Every single home game has been against a team in the top 7 so far this season. It's remarkable how they've faced almost all of the big guns at Molineux, and they've got credit in the bank, really. Some good performances in there. The win against City, of course, draws against Newcastle and Villa, pride in defeat against Liverpool and Brighton. So they won't be fazed by Tottenham, who are severely weakened. The forward line still looks okay, doesn't it? Son, even without a Maddison, you've got Son, Kulusevski and Johnson. Strong. Midfield is strong. But Bissouma, Sarr, Bentancur, fine. But 3 of your back 4 out is massive, because it's not as if Spurs are well stocked in that area anyway. Not got a lot of backups, I would suggest. So is it going to be Dyer and Emerson Royale at centre half with Porro? I don't know who's going to play left back. It's far from ideal. And Wolves have pace, and not obviously not as much without Neto, but Hwang's lively. They've got other players. Cunha's a very good dribbler. Kaladzic is an option as a target man. Bellegarde is got a little bit of something about him. So I think that Wolves, who have scored at least once in each of their last 10 Premier League games, will score. I mean, I'm pretty sure of that. Again, the high line, by the way, Van der Ven is so quick. Udogie, rapid. 2 of the fastest players around. Romero's quick. So for those 3 to be out, and if they continue to play in the same way, Wolves might be rubbing their hands, I've got to say. So yeah, even without Neto, I'd fancy them to score, but I would also fancy Spurs. I'd fancy Spurs. And you see that my selections popped up on the screen. I could have saved this for long shots, but I just thought it was too good a price to ignore, really. And I wanted to flag up something that added a bit of value. And I've got something else in mind for long shots. So I know it's a bit out there, but with the Spurs injuries at the back, with Wolves, offering a threat in every game they play, obviously looking to bounce back from that Sheffield United poor result, poor performance, I can see them causing Tottenham problems. I can see them scoring a couple of goals, which will make it hard for Spurs to win the game. So yeah, but Wolves and both teams to score, yes, an incredible 5.7. I can see it happening. I can see a 2-1, a 3-1, a 3-2. It could be a really, really exciting game, this, because the best way for Spurs to protect a back 4 that's never, ever played together is to attack. So attack is the best form of defence. I think we could see a cracking game here. So yeah, 5.7 on Wolves to win and both teams to score.
Well, there's just no way after his interview that he's not going to keep that attacking philosophy going this game. So yeah, that's a couple of comments. Can you imagine Jose seeing Ange's tactics that game down to a 9? And maybe look, that's not to make it too deep, right? But when you're watching a game, you forget like everyone else is watching the game, including the big guns. So Jose would have been watching that somewhere in Italy on a Monday night if he didn't have a game. So yeah, I'm fascinated by that too. I'm going to lock in Wolves and both teams to score. Yes, I do think it's a big price.
You're going to lock it in.
I'm going to lock it in. The serious bets are for Sunday. We're going to have a fun one.
You're as bold as hands, you are, Dan. Yeah.
I cannot believe I've been overruled on this one for the 5.7 shot, but bloody hell, we're starting big, aren't we?
Incredible.
Adrian made the case. I think this is it's going to be the early kickoff curse no more. I think the early kickoff this season have been terrible goals wise, but this is the one. 3-1 or 3-2 Wolves, I think what we're feeling. So, and that will land both bets. So Wolves, both teams to score, yes, 5.7, and those match results and both teams to score angles on the Match Betting Exchange, very competitively priced. So do check them out before kickoff. We will go to Sunday. We're covering 3 games: Liverpool versus Brentford. Obviously Liverpool in Europa League action Thursday night, so we don't know the result of that. Away to Toulouse. Take a look at the betting that we currently have. Shouldn't change too much barring injuries. Liverpool 1.42, Brentford 8.2, draws 5.6. Both teams to score, yes, in this market 1.67. Getting back a little bit this morning. The Asian handicap line sees Brentford get 1.25 goal head start, and the goal line is 3.5. So, Adrian, I have to say, looking at Luton versus Liverpool, I was very disappointed overall with Liverpool's performance, albeit you have to give credit to Luton. And where were you with that game and going into this one before the international break? It's big that they get that 3 points just to keep pace with City.
Yeah, they weren't great, were they? They let Luton sort of disrupt them a little bit. Created lots of chances, had loads of efforts on goal, but finishing was poor, and the quality of their chance creation wasn't what you might expect it to be. But Luton will do that to teams at Kenilworth Road. That's what they're all about. I wouldn't read too much into it, but mild concern. I think Liverpool at home, it is hard to back against them. They've won all 8 home games in all competitions so far this season, and they've won them all by at least 2 goals. They're scoring a lot of times every time they rock up at Anfield. Yet the price on them on a minus 1.5 to continue that run, to make it 9 wins in a row by 2 or more goals, is 2.12. It's the outside of the 2. And why is that? It's because of Brentford. I'll tell you, Brentford are awkward opponents. They can make life uncomfortable for a lot of teams. And as Luton made life uncomfortable for Liverpool at times, I would back Brentford, even though it's at Anfield, to have their moments. So I found this a really interesting game. Obviously, Liverpool are deserving favourites, but is this the Anfield match that's going to be a bit tighter? Is this the one that tests them on home turf for the first time this season? Because you never go through a season where you wipe the floor with everybody. I think it could be. I think this could be a tougher game than the odds suggest. Both teams to score is nudging up towards 1.7, as you said, for a reason. The Bees have scored in 10 of 11 matches in the Premier League so far this season. So, they're more than capable of going there and nicking a goal. We know about their setup against the big teams. They'll switch from 4-3-3 to 3-5-2. Very, very comfortable. So Ben Mee will probably come back in. I'd imagine Mope might drop out, and it'll be back to the Visser and Burmo combination at the top end of the pitch. And those two have been in down the channels, especially in Trent Alexander-Arnold, who had a tough time against Ogbene at the weekend. Doesn't like playing against quick, direct players. Well, there's 2 of them in the Brentford lineup. So my selection here is actually to oppose Liverpool, which seems a bit mad, given how good they are at home. But I just think Brentford are a little bit too long here, and I think they can avoid being beaten by 2 goals. Think about their season so far. Brentford at home is the only real poor display. They're second best there. It's the only match they've lost by more than 1 goal this season, Brentford. They've been in every match. They've obviously won a few, drawn a few, and the ones that they have got beaten in, apart from Everton, were really, really close games. So yeah, I went back into the archive to see, well, how long is it since Brentford away from home got beaten by 2 goals? It's over a year. It's over a year. But Villa away, 4-0. Obviously had a bit of a nightmare. Haven't lost away from home by 2 goals or more since. They haven't conceded more than 2 in an away game since April, which is a 3-3 draw at Brighton. So that's a run of 1 in 18 where they've conceded more than 2 away from home. So look, if they can get themselves a goal here, the odds are stacked in their favour for this bet to land, and I'm going to take it on.
Okay, Adrian feeling full of life this morning. This is very promising. This is Mark. I think you're in trouble to follow this in terms of getting your bet over the line here. Little bit on Adrian's selection first, and were you tempted to side with Brentford on that big handicap, given just even the stat about Brentford away from home over the last year or so?
Yeah, because I've got the same stat here as well. And Brentford plus 1.5 was on my shortlist. It was a very strong option. I think what they've achieved so far this season is incredibly commendable for the club and Thomas Frank, considering they lost their goalkeeper, their star striker. They're dealing with a host of injuries across the board yet again. But they've accrued the same number of points after 11 games as last season, when Ivan Toney scored 8 of their 17 goal total. This season, they've scored 19 from their opening 11, so they're actually doing better in the final third. And there's actually a feeling that they've left some points out there as well, if you think of the Man United match in particular. So they could easily be doing better than they already are. I thought the talk of Brentford's demise was really premature a couple of weeks back. They win 3 games on the spin now, and suddenly everyone's kind of hunky-dory about Brentford again. And they're not going to change too much. They're still always going to be very competitive in every game they play. They have got the tools to trouble Liverpool, as Adrian's outlined, and they've also got a very decent record against elite opposition too. They won at Chelsea. They didn't deserve to lose at United. They lost by 1 at Newcastle, lost by 1 at Anfield last season, 1 at Spurs last season, 1 at Man City last season, lost by 1 at United last season, 1 at Chelsea last season, drew at Arsenal last season. And as Adrian says, that record of avoiding heavy defeats away from home is incredibly impressive. However, do I want to really oppose Liverpool at Anfield? Not really. It is one of the most intimidating venues in the Premier League. Their win record at home over the last 3-4 years is absolutely astonishing. Very, very strong, racking up heaps of goals. And so in the end, I've kind of just decided I'd rather be pro Liverpool than find a way in which to perhaps potentially be with Brentford. Now, obviously, I think recency bias will tell us that Liverpool weren't at the races last week at Luton. Salah was off colour. Darwin Núñez obviously has been criticised for his finishing, and rightfully so. But going into that game, Liverpool had won 12 of their previous 14. 10 of those 12 wins have been by 2 goals or more. The Spurs VAR match is still their only defeat this season. They're still only 3 points off the top. They still are a bloody good team. The only inconvenience they have is a game in France on Thursday night, but got the squad to cope with that. And ultimately, it comes down to price, really. Brentford plus 1.5 was a smaller price than backing Liverpool to win and under 4.5 goals, which comes in at 195, so not far off even money. Liverpool have only scored 4 or more goals once this season. I don't expect them to do so against Brentford. This wager allows them to win the game and Brentford to contribute to a relatively low goal line. So, that's what I've chosen. It's purely a price play. I think Liverpool, obviously you have to pick and choose your opportunities to oppose them at Anfield. This might be one, absolutely. And I would kind of back up Adrian's analysis and his selection too. I've just opted for the bigger price for being with Liverpool.
Bigger price. I am going to lean Mark's way with Liverpool and under 4.5 goals, 195. But as Mark alluded to and Adrian, it is probably an interesting time if you do want to get a team like Brentford on side. You're getting a quite decent price and a quite decent Asian handicap, plus 1.5. Brentford 179. The selection for Adrian. We'll go to Aston Villa versus Fulham. Similar story with Liverpool. We are recording this Thursday morning. Shouldn't affect the prices too much, but do keep an eye on injury news. Aston Villa 165, Fulham 6.0. The draw is 4.3. Both teams to score, yes, is 1.8. The Asian handicap line, Fulham are getting a 1-goal head start. Favourites in that market at 188, and the total is 2.5. So, Mark, are Aston Villa a different team at Villa Park than they are away from home?
I think that's fair enough. I thought they played all right last weekend against Forest, despite the defeat. But they have been unable to kind of match those performance levels away from home. I think that's very fair. Against Forest, they created chances. The finishing was poor. They played a bit of indecision. Emi Martinez had a bit of an off day. You can see 2 shots from outside the box, failed to take your own chances, and that's football. You lose the match. They were a bit erratic, and I expect an improvement. But I also expected them to be shorter than 165 to beat Fulham. My numbers make them closer to a 1.5 shot. Obviously, they have the Thursday night to contend with, quick turnaround. But even still, they've been pretty much faultless at Villa Park now since Unai Emery took charge. 12 successive home Premier League wins is an incredible feat. They've scored twice or more in 10 of those. They've scored 3 goals or more in 7 of those. They scored 3 goals or more, I think, in all 5 Premier League games at Villa Park this season. 20 goals across those 5 home fixtures. Outstanding output. And actually, since he took charge, they've won 14 of 18 home Premier League games, averaging 2.5 goals, scoring twice or more in 14 of 18. Over 2.5 has landed in 14 of 18. Half of those matches even gone over 3.5 goals as well. So if you look at the underlying process at Villa Park, it's been super strong too. So I naturally want to be with Villa here. And I think the way to get them on side is to back Villa to win the game and over 1.5 goals. It moves that price from 165 to 193. It just excludes the 1-0 correct score, which I think is fair enough when you consider all those numbers I've just read out. Villa have been very, very good going forward. And Fulham, of course, have got the capacity to be stubborn, to be stodgy. They don't offer a great deal going forward. I think we saw against Man United 18 shots, but never really convinced in the final third. Rodrigo Muniz went off injured, so we're probably likely to have Raul Jimenez leading the line again with Willian and Alex Iwobi kind of supporting him. Doesn't really inspire me too much. And they have shipped a couple of goals away at City, Arsenal and Spurs already. They kept Brighton fairly well at bay last time out on the road, but I think Villa, for me, compared to Brighton right now, are the more consistent, the more confident unit. And I'll happily back them to score a couple of goals and win this game. Not far off even money. I think that's a very fair play.
Yeah, Adrian, over to you. It's hard to argue with really anything Mark said, particularly on Aston Villa.
Yeah, it feels like one of the bets of the weekend. I've got to be honest. I think that you couldn't bet against Aston Villa at home right now. Perfect record. And I worked on the game last weekend of Fulham against United. Two pretty bad teams. It was really scrappy. United were there for the taking, but Fulham just didn't have it. Just they've not got that goal threat. No real fluency to their play. I've got to say, if they didn't allow Palhinha and Bernd Leno, Fulham would probably be in the bottom three in a fight to survive. Those two stand out really to me, and the rest of the side is not great. And Ream and Bassi up against Watkins and Diaby. I fancy the Villa players for sure. See, Palhinha's fantastic in the middle there, but Villa are really strong in the engine room themselves. Yeah, the numbers are there. Villa, scored at least twice in 10 of their last 11 at home. The one where they didn't was actually Fulham last year, 1-0. So that's something to consider. But this Fulham, I don't think are as good as last season's Fulham. They don't have that outlet with Mitrovic, and I think they'll do well to keep the score down here. That's how I feel. They haven't got a very good away record at Aston Villa. Just one win in their last 19 at Villa Park. 11 of those were defeats. So yeah, you can only really see a home win. I agree with Mark. I expected to see Villa much, much shorter than this. So if you can just add in the 1+1, 1.5 goals, you get up towards even money. That's fantastic value for me. And one of the strongest bets of the weekend.
Yeah, to be boring, I completely agree with the guys there. Aston Villa over 1.5 goals, 194. Quick question, Adrian, on Craven Cottage. That stand still not finished. Is it the one? Is there any? I know you were there. The
middle is still the two sides of the upper tier. So the lower tier is fine. The two each 18-yard box has got hands in it. It's just the middle section. I don't know what the deal is there, but yeah. I mean, have you seen the price of the tickets? I mean, they do well to sell the tickets with the kind of football that they produce against Man United. I wouldn't be paying, over £100 to sit in those seats anytime soon. So, but look, the ground's better than it used to be.
Good.
I just think at the minute Fulham aren't in great nick. And Villa at home, they just love it, don't they? They've got some serious momentum.
It was Darwin Núñez's debut last year, their first home game, and the BT commentator said it'd be a few weeks and that stand to be done. So it's been bugging me for the last year or so, but I'm glad that they're filling it slowly but surely. There's been a few issues. Same with the Anfield stand as well, which is wild stuff there, really, to be honest. These things aren't done. Chelsea versus Manchester City, the Super Sunday game. We'll take a look at the betting. We have a matchbook.com. The rating is coming imminently, but I will listen to the guys' thoughts first. Chelsea 5.0, Manchester City 184, top of the league, draw 3.8. Both teams to score, yes. 181, bit of a drift on that this morning. Asian handicap line sees Chelsea get a 3/4 of a goal head start, and the goal line is 2.5. So Adrian, going back to you on this one, and look, we spoke a lot about Monday night, so maybe a focus on Man City. It's ominous that Haaland got taken off at half time. They won so easily against Bournemouth. And even more so, Champions League as well was another routine win. They seem to be clicking into gear about 3 or 4 months earlier than they usually do, which is a bit unfortunate for the other 19 teams in the Premier League.
It's not ideal for the rest of the league, is it? Obviously, they've lost John Stones. Lost John Stones to injury, which I think is a blow, because that Stones Rodri axis is really good, isn't it? And so, what will they do there? Will they have Rico Lewis? Will they drop in Bernardo Silva? Maybe that's what they'll do. And then, so you lose Bernardo from the final third, but then you look at Doku and Grealish. I mean, these two are absolutely on fire. and they can't both play left wing. Makes me wonder, can they find a way to get both of those guys into the team? And maybe Grealish can play as an attacking central player rather than out wide if Doku's doing so well. So yeah, it's ominous for Chelsea, who obviously have got a really bad recent record against Manchester City. As soon as I saw the odds, I didn't even do any research. I was like, right, Man City 1.84. I mean, they're the stronger team. If you can get them at that kind of price, home or away, it's interesting, isn't it? And the way that Chelsea went about their work against Spurs wasn't massively convincing. I've got to agree with what Mark said earlier. It was patchy at best. In the early stages of that game, when it was 11v11, massive gaps were opening up. The Spurs goal was so easy to score against them. And if Tottenham can do that, then Manchester City can absolutely do that to them. I don't rate the back four. I just don't. Not a fan of Disassi. Cucurella, for me, is a more natural left back than Colwill. I'd expect to see him come in. I would rather have Colwill and Thiago Silva than Disassi and Thiago Silva. Reece James, obviously, he's going to have a tough game, whoever he's up against, whether it's Doku or Grealish. I just think City will get at Chelsea more than most teams. And if you can get at this Chelsea team, I think you can score goals. So, yeah, City at 1.84 is a great pick. But when I looked into it a little bit more, I thought, well, I'm going to flag this, even though it's a slightly longer shot. But Manchester City to win to 0 or Manchester City and both teams to score no, it's 3.3. Now, that really appeals because the last 7 times Man City have beaten Chelsea, it's been to 0. And the way that they swept Man United aside at Old Trafford, is a signal of intent. We know that Chelsea have had problems scoring goals at the Bridge. Didn't score against Brentford, did they, in their last home game? So, yeah, I think Man City and both teams to score no at 3.3 is a lovely little boost. So, yeah, it's take your pick really out of those two. But, yeah, very confident that City will get the job done here.
Yeah, interesting. Doku and Grealish finished the game against Young Boys those last 10 minutes when he came on, but it was sort of they were interlinking between the two. So maybe they can play going forward beside each other. City both teams scored now 3.3 for Adrian. A similar pro-City approach here, Mark. Is there any sort of case for Chelsea? Adrian alluded to this last day. The formation played against Arsenal without Jackson was probably more effective than the one they started with against Spurs. Yeah, Nicholas Jackson finishes with a hat-trick. It's one of those games.
How'd you leave him out?
Yeah, you can't leave Jackson out now, surely. So.
Well, you can.
Well, you can. You should, by the way, but go on.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen a worse performance from 11 men against 9. I've not had many examples of it, but it was bordering on disgraceful, really. And the way in which those players, just incredibly naive from the start, to be in such a position of promise despite starting poorly, to then have Reece James and Levi Colwill almost trying to get themselves sent off as well. Quite fortuitous, I think, Chelsea, to have 11 on the field at some points. But their execution, their control, the leadership, direction, all these kind of characteristics we've talked about all season were totally lacking. And to see them sort of just be the befuddlement that they had to try and kind of penetrate that Spurs defence was incredibly amusing. But this season they've kind of toiled against deep line defences for the most part, especially at Stamford Bridge. So you got offered an opportunity there to play against Tottenham's makeshift defence, who were defending on the halfway line, and to see them struggle to work out how to open them up and basically had were on the ropes themselves at times was a damning indictment, I think, on where Chelsea are at right now. And would have to agree with everything Adrian has said here, and the right way forward is to be pro City. I think the price on City to win is very attractive. They were 1.67 to win this fixture back in January. Have Chelsea really improved that amount to see that price kind of increase to where it is now? City were 1.61 at the off away at Manchester United in the derby and absolutely destroyed them. So, I think I'd be happy to back City at the price. But if you want something a bit bigger, I would include under 4.5 goals. It gets the City price to 2.2. I think they have been intentionally more controlled in their approach this season. They've not been regularly kind of shredding teams. They've been quite happy to sort of dissect them and strangle them early on, and then basically see the game out. And Haaland is fit. We saw that in midweek, and they've had a relatively gentle midweek match too. So they'll be gunning for this last match before the international break. They're top of the table. Kind of put the just to finish this period of the season off with another sort of strong performance. I don't think they're close to being at their best at the minute, which is quite ominous for the rest of the division. But I think they'll be eager to kind of show how good they can be again this weekend. So I'm happy to be pro City here for sure.
Okay, we'll lock in City under 4.5 goals. I think that's a decent boost. 2.2 options there with both teams to score now, or just City on the nose. Aston Villa versus Fulham. We're going for Aston Villa and over 1.5 goals. That's both guys. Liverpool and under 4.5 goals. Marginal call against Brentford for Mark. And then Adrian, Wolves, both teams to score, yes, versus Tottenham 5.7. I feel like doing the Nigel Farage. You all laughed at me when Wolves and both teams to score come in on Twitter. I'm picking that selection, but it's a massive price in fairness, 5.7. Incidentally, the official matchbook weekend football Super Sunday rating is 6.2 out of 10. If you want to break down for that, DM me on Twitter. I think West Ham Forest is decent enough then it looks. Adrian, 2 EFL bets on the card here for yourself. And look, Norwich City and David Wagner, they struggled, and obviously they did TV game 12 o'clock last week against Blackburn. It's only a matter of time, and it's not good when Frank Lambert's being linked with your job when you're still in it, I think, personally. I know Mark agrees.
Jack Wilshere's been linked as well, which is an interesting one. He's gone. David Wagner's gone. It's just when. I think he'll last until this game, but I think with the international break looming, they've just employed a new sporting director, guy from Arsenal actually called Ben Napper, and they've brought forward his start date to basically, I think it's straight after this Cardiff Norwich game, which maybe doesn't bode too well for the current manager. They're in a mess at the moment, Norwich City. They've got talented forward players, but they're missing their 2 best goal getters, their best 2 defensive forwards in Ashley Barnes and Josh Sargent. And without the ball, they've been all over the place. Teams have been slicing through them with real ease. Players have been getting sent off. They've been gifting loads of chances. You can't back Norwich at the moment. They're just in a little bit of free fall. And Cardiff are decent. Cardiff are having a surprisingly good season under Errol Bullitt. At home, been excellent. 5 wins, 1 draw, 1 defeat. Against the best teams in the division away from home. They've played the top 3 already away from home. They scored in all of those games and made them very competitive matches. So I think Cardiff are decent, maybe better than what you think. 5 clean sheets of late, 3 on the spin as well from Cardiff. So I think they're going to be a tough nut to crack. And Norwich, by the way, just in case you didn't know, 4 straight losses, 12 conceded in that run. 3 of those matches were at home as well. So, they've been very, very fragile. So I think win or lose, Norwich will make a change with the manager, and the players will know this. I just don't see them being highly motivated. I think they're in that little bit of state of limbo. And I'm surprised, actually, that you can be offered odds of 2.18 on the Cardiff win, given that situation and their home record this year. So, I'm quite confident about Cardiff.
Yeah, and Blackburn also a bankable price last weekend as well. I feel like the market's a bit slow to catch up with that in the Championship, perhaps. And League One's your other selection, Adrian. Derby versus Barnsley. You're expecting a goal-heavy game here.
Yeah, decent match this in League One. Derby obviously had a slow start to the season, but expect promotion. Barnsley expect promotion. They're in the playoff picture at the moment. Look, Barnsley matches average 3.07 goals a game. That's the 3rd highest in the division. Derby's average 2.67. So, there are a decent amount of goals in matches involving these 2. What draws me to this bet is their goal records. They almost always score. Barnsley have scored in 14 of 15 matches so far this season. Their attack is very much better than their defence. And Derby, even though they've not been that exciting, have got pedigree players. 13 of 15 matches, Derby County have scored in so far this season as well. So that's the reason I'm sort of lured towards both teams to score, which is it's getting harder and harder to find matches where you can back it at a good price. These days it seems like both teams to score is almost a shoe-in. And Barnsley, for what it's worth, have a great away record, the best in League One, 5 wins, 2 draws, no losses. So they'll go there and attack and try and win the game. They've averaged almost 2 goals per game on the road as well. So I would absolutely fancy Barnsley to score. But Derby are coming into a bit of better form. They've picked up 14 points from their last 8 matches. So yeah, I think that Derby are more than capable of being competitive, obviously at home, but also scoring. So yeah, I think this is a decent pick too.
Okay, our EFL selections for Adrian: Cardiff to beat Norwich in the Championship 2.18, and Derby versus Barnsley, both teams to score 183. Mark, Serie A for you for European bets, and it's quite decent title race, maybe 4, big 4 potentially in the hunt, but Juventus are second, looking to catch Inter. Had a decent start to the season, and you're expecting them to take care of business this weekend.
Yeah, they can go top of Serie A on Saturday evening if they beat Cagliari in Turin before into play. They've benefited from no European football this season. Obviously, that ban is in place, but they're looking like a Max Allegri side of old, actually. And I'm going to back them to win and beat yes, no. Basically, Juventus to win to 0 against Cagliari at 2.15, which I think is a very decent price. They've won their last 4. That includes kind of the typical suffer ball tactics of Allegri in 1-0 wins, old rivals Fiorentina last weekend, and at Milan a fortnight ago. In between, they've kind of comfortably seen off Verona and Torino. It's actually now 6 consecutive clean sheets in Serie A and 8 clean sheets in 11 overall. Just 6 goals conceded, and 4 of those came in one game away at Sassuolo, and they had a real sort of off night. But in Turin, 4 wins from 5, just conceding 2 goals. They're allowing just 0.4 expected goals per game in those 5 home fixtures and just 4.16 shots in the box. So very, very strong defensively. They're playing a Cagliari team who are led by Claudio Ranieri these days. They've actually been fairly fun to follow, but mainly in matches they're expected to kind of pick up points in. So they've scored 8 goals in the last 3 matches, but they came against Genoa, Salernitana and Frosinone. They'd actually failed to score in 5 of 8 previously. They were blanked in losses against Atalanta, Inter and Fiorentina. They scored just twice in 6 against top half teams. They're winless away. They failed to score in 3 or 5 away and have the 5th worst XG output in the Division 2. So, put it all in the mixer, and I think Juventus to win to 0, or Juventus and beat it yes, no at 2.15 is a very fair option. Juve just to win the game is 139, so it's a big increase.
I always find those jumps huge. If you can find a team that can keep a clean sheet with a win, it's going to pay out for you. And look, as the comments say, they're liking that non-European angle this season for Juventus. We will go to best long shots, which landed a 31.2 double, if that's your kind of thing, last week, Lamasso and Aldershot. I wasn't on the double. We've got a couple of screenshots last week saying they were on the double, so do send them in. Brilliant. Yeah, so how do you follow that, Mark? Well, I think what you do is you watch the Champions League and waiting for a team to not quite be at it, a couple of injuries, and then maybe going to a Saturday game, potentially could be under pressure here away to Bournemouth, and that is Newcastle.
Yeah, might sound surprising to oppose a team who are unbeaten in 7 Premier League games, scoring 20, keeping clean sheets in 5 of their 7 wins during that sample, but they weren't really at it against Arsenal, I thought, last weekend. And they have started to look pretty leggy from a very tough schedule, which is understandable. This will be their 7th game in 3 weeks since the last international break. And for me, they've not really impressed outside of St. James's Park consistently. It's a Tuesday to Saturday turnaround, both matches away, so rest and preparation is limited. And then you come to the list of unavailable players for the weekend, which has grown even further after midweek, where Callum Wilson didn't finish the game. We know Tonali, Byrne, Botman, Barnes, Murphy, Anderson, Target and Manquillo are all missing anyhow. Isak as well, I should say. But Bruno Guimaraes is suspended as well. So that's 11 players missing through injury or suspension. And I would say at least 5 are first-choice starters. You look at the bench at Dortmund in midweek, very, very threadbare. I guess the positive is Bournemouth now have injuries themselves. Alex Scott went off last week, which is a big blow. But Lewis Cook is back from a ban, so it's not like for like, but at least they can fill him in there. And I think Bournemouth do play with a degree of intensity, a degree of energy, which could be a tipping point here. They competed pretty well against Chelsea and Spurs at home earlier in the season. The +1 handicap, I think, is definitely worth a look here. It's hard for me to see Newcastle winning this game by 2 clear goals, but just for the long shot, I thought the 5.1 was worth a wee interest, just because I think tired legs, tired minds after a couple of really intense weeks playing a fresh and raring to go Bournemouth side who do play with that energy levels, could easily tip the balance in Bournemouth's favour.
Okay, 5:30 Saturday could be an interesting game, particularly given those Newcastle injuries, as Mark alluded to there. Adrian, I have to say, I do like this bet. I have to say, I'm happy to go down with this ship as well. If this is 3-2, 3-all, fair play. But Crystal Palace at home to Everton just has the feel of a 0-0 draw. So
I mean, it has got the feel of the biggest 0-0 going, hasn't it? I think we can all see it. We can all see it. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen, of course, but yeah, I don't mind backing a 0-0 every now and again when you've got two quite dour teams that very much focus on defending. Look, this is Hodgson against Dyche. It's they're going to be quite pragmatic. You know that. Everton, even though they're getting a little bit better, they have failed to score in 5 matches so far this season. Palace have failed to score in 4 games. These stats here are probably the reasons why I've gone for this. Palace have been involved in the lowest scoring matches this season by far. Their matches only averaged 2.09 goals. It is the lowest. Everton are the second lowest, and just a little bit above that, 2.36 goals per game. Both teams to score no has landed in 7 of 11 for each. So, they both go in with that clean sheets mentality, don't they? Palace have got 5 of them already this season. I like their back 4. I think Anderson and Guehi have been really good this season. And you look at Everton as well, and with Branthwaite in there and Tarkowski, that's another partnership that seems to be getting better and better. So this feels like a game where defences might be on top. So I'm going to go for the goalless draw, a nice juicy 9.0.
Yeah, it's actually pushed out a bit to 9.6. Adrian, would you believe? So
bonus.
Sportsbook's best price at the moment, 8.5, 9.6 currently on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Correct score markets and nil odds in general. Do check out the Matchbook Betting Exchange on that. Yeah, that seems, it's one of those games after you go, of course that'd be 0-all. It's nice to get ahead of it and go, maybe let's just have a fun little play here in the long shots here. So Crystal Palace 0, Everton 0, Roy Hodgson 0, Sean Dyche 0. Yeah, I like it. 46 minutes and 40 seconds ish, depending how you're listening to this, Adrian, before the first mention of Arsenal on the podcast, the highest over of the season. And I thought, despite only winning 2-0, I thought it was a very impressive defensive performance from Arsenal. Really, really solid against Sevilla over the week.
Yeah, it was decent last night. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was comprehensive. I mean, Sevilla, goodness me, played like a non-league team. An FA Cup tie. They so we pushed them back so comfortably. Arsenal, it was embarrassing. They had 2 touches inside Arsenal's box. Sevilla, how many times they've ever won the Europa League? This is a European heavyweight, and their first shot of the game, or their only shot in the game, in the 97th minute. So yeah, Arsenal had complete control of that game, and if they can do that to Sevilla, I think they can do it to Burnley. But it's not just about the Sevilla game, actually. 4 of Arsenal's 5 previous home games have been wins to 0. So 4 of the last 5 have been wins to 0, which is good, very good actually, considering Emirates Stadium had been a bit wild, a bit chaotic last season, and also at the start of this season. But things have changed a little bit. The PSV win, comprehensive. PSV had 0.55 XG. Manchester City came to town. Arsenal beat them 1-0. City had 4 shots that day. Their XG, 0.48, incredibly low for Manchester City. Next up, it was Sheffield United. 2 shots in the game. You couldn't really count either of them as a proper shot. They had a 0.03 XG at Emirates Stadium, so they did nothing. And Sevilla last night, with that 1 shot, had a 0.04 XG against Arsenal. So Arsenal are keeping teams at arm's length very, very well at the moment at Emirates Stadium. So, we all know about Burnley's struggles. They can't seem to get results. But the second fewest shots in open play, second lowest XG in open play. They're missing Lara Foster, who's their main goal getter. They've had 4 blanks in their last 7 games. It feels like Arsenal can win this to 0 comfortably. It does. I mean, there won't be many people out there backing against Arsenal to win the game. Well, based on what I've just said in terms of the last, few home games, they can absolutely win this 2-0 as well. So providing the same concentration and focus is there, providing we don't see an unbelievable upturn from the Clarets, this should be an Arsenal win, and it should be an Arsenal win 2-0.
Okay, yeah, again, a big jump. If you can find a team that can keep a clean sheet with a win, it is a big jump in price. 191. Arsenal, both teams to score now. Best records running down bottom of the screen, plus £112 if you had a £20 stake and 2% commission. Betting on the match with Bet and Exchange on singles with the lads' best bets. And the long shots record that I didn't read out was 5 wins, 17 defeats, yet up £200 based on a £20 stake and includes 2% commission. If you are playing on those prices, do check out the Matchbook Bet and Exchange. Mark, there's been a serious lack of over 2.5 goals in the Bundesliga on this podcast today. So I would like you to change that, please.
It's time.
Yeah, pretty miffed. I've been on a lovely winning streak on this best bets section of the podcast this season. But the winning streak was ended last week as Augsburg and Köln drew 1-1. It was 1-1 at half time.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mark, very unfortunate. I want you to say that. It was 1-1 very early on in the game. I think you did your bit.
Yeah, I mean, Augsburg had a goal disallowed in the first half as well. We couldn't get the third goal despite an XG output of 4.7, 44 shots overall and 6 big chances. So, yeah, pretty miffed about that one. But back on the goals trail this weekend, 6 of 9 Bundesliga games did go over last match day. So 74% of overall matches this season have gone over, including these two teams, Darmstadt and Mainz, who combined have seen 17 of their 20 combined matches go over. That's 80%. Impressively, 13 of those 20 went over 3.5. 15 saw BTTS. They've scored in 16 of those 20 combined and managed just 1 clean sheet between them. So Darmstadt have basically scored in every game, bar their trip to Bayern, where they were pummeled, but they had 2 players sent off in that fixture. They have also conceded 2 goals or more in 8 of their 9 matches, and their home matches are averaging 4.8 goals. Mainz, meanwhile, got their first win of the season last week against Leipzig. It came just days after Bo Svensson was handed in his resignation, but it was the third game in 4 that they've actually scored at least 2 goals, and it also represented their first clean sheet of the campaign. However, they have conceded 2 goals or more in 8 of their previous 9, and they've leaked 18 goals in 5 away days, despite yet travelling to a top half team. So, even against the lesser lights, they're conceding heaps of goals away from home, and those away matches have averaged 4 goals per game too. So, over 2.5 goals. If you're going to give me 178, it's the most no-brainer bet of the weekend for me in the Bundesliga. So, all over it. And you're muted.
Love it, guys. Love it. Those best bets. Arsenal both teams score now and over 2.5 goals in the Bundesliga. My thanks to Mark and Adrian. We appreciate all the comments on social. Enjoy the international break. We'll be back Thursday following that, all being well. Until then, enjoy the weekend's football. Take care. Bye-bye.